So how would you tell if the suction is too much or too little?
You would monitor it here, right here, where we put the water in up to 20. It would have bubbles.
And you want what kind of bubbling?
Just a little bit of bubbling. You don't want a bunch. You don't want hardly any, but just a moderate amount.
Okay. When you're recording output, tell me about that.
Okay. Right here is where you will record it. How much there is. You want to note the color of it. How much in the time frame. You know, if it's been 30 minutes or an hour or 2 hours, you'd want to note that. The color, the consistency, if there's any sediment in it.
Okay. Let's do a dressing change. How would we do a dressing change on the patient?
Okay. Alright, so you have your 4x4s, sterile 4x4s. Got your thicker 4x4 here. Your petroleum-based gauze. And you've got your tape. And of course, you don't want to change it unless you absolutely have to. You don't want to just change it to a check the site. You want to limit the amount of times you have to change it unless you have to. So we're going to be as clean as possible. I would take the old dressing off and use a sterile 4x4. Don't clean it. Just to clean around from where the other stuff was. So then I would pour this sterile water or saline, and you would monitor. Toss it. Toss that in the trash. You can cut it to, let's say that we did. We cut it to match.
And what are you making sure when you put the petroleum gauze on? Do you want it partially occluded or?
No, you want it fully. You want it fully occluded.
Yeah, so no holes.
We'll put this over, well, is this one the thicker one, you think?
4x4?
Over.
I think.
And we would stick this back on. And, oh, I hate this stuff. My hands are slick from the
So it might be a good idea to get the tape.
yeah, it might be a good idea to get the tape out first.
You can change your gloves.
Yeah, let me take them off. I will toss these in the trash. I keep hearing stuff over there. I need some scissors.
It's the stuff that tears.
I can't get it to tear. Ah. Stick. Dressing done.
What's one more thing with the chamber when we set it up that we'd want to ensure as far as securing it?
Yeah, to secure it to the floor.
the securing it over
This
here
way?
with the tape.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
And it might be good to have it on the side of the
Well, I was looking at it because of the tubing.
the tubing
I wonder if it
in the
would
bed.
will it fit.
Mhm.
And you always want to keep the drain system below the chest. Never above the chest, never on the bed. The risk of falling over. Jeez. Okay. And then you could secure it to the floor, to the floor by,
You probably just say it.
say it.
The weights.
We could tape it right here to keep it from falling over. Okay. Yeah. So this is nursing interventions. What was that? Petroleum gauze. That's Harmer. Or that was a dressing change, wasn't it?
Okay, so what if there was? You just talk about some emergencies.
You're recording now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Just so
Okay.
you can keep watching it. What if the tubing comes disconnected? So the tube is still in the patient, but this part becomes disconnected.
You could get some sterile water
Mm-hmm.
and stick the part right here that's still into the patient into the sterile water.
How far in?
2 inches.
Okay. Say the chest tube actually came out of the patient entirely.
Haha. So you have these at bedside. Open this, cover the patient with it, and call the doctor.
What if there is a lot of bubbling in the air leak chamber?
Okay.
How would you do?
That's why you would have your padded hemostats. You would want to start up here as close to the patient as possible, and clamp,
Mhm.
and see if there's still bubbles.
Mhm.
And if there is, then you know it's not the patient, that it's in the tubing, and you can continue to go down this way until you find where it stops.
Do you want to
bubbling.
leave it clamped for long?
No.
Very short amount of time?
Yes.
Okay. And what are you watching for if any of these things happened in the patient?
Well, of course, you want to monitor their respiration rate, the depth of their in and out, their O2 sats. You want to make sure the dressing's in place at all times.
And what would,
Can't look at that.
say everything's still set up the right way, what facilitates drainage in a patient? How would you kind of want them to, as far as like their positioning?
Well, you wouldn't want them upright, at least. You wouldn't want them laying flat. So in a semi-Fowler's or a high Fowler's position, 30 degrees or more.
Okay. And would you want to turn them often or no?
Yeah, about every 2 hours. And you would want to listen to their chest and their lung sounds. You want to monitor their heart rate, the output, of course, of how much drainage and in the time frame that it's coming in. If it's too fast or too slow. If it's too slow, there could be an obstruction somewhere.
Say there was an obstruction in the tubing, what's an appropriate way to remove some kind of obstruction in the tubing?
It's not recommended to milk it. They say that it's not really that appropriate, but you could.
What would you have to make sure you do if you decide to
Very,
milk it?
very softly, to where you don't occlude the tubing. You can very, very softly milk it.
What would you
out
never
that
want
way.
to do?
You would not want to strip it, where you sit there and do this
Yeah.
to push it down and stretch the tubing. I mean, it wouldn't want to do that.
Okay. That it?
And again, you don't want to change the dressing if you don't have to. And you always want to check for bubbles, and if the water starts to get low, to refill it. And that's it.
Okay.
That's it.